I guess I'm going to hand it over to Ruby to describe, for those of you who joined from the public, what the process is for public comment. Ruby?
Yes, thanks, Tony. So yay, I'm excited. We're going to do public comment digitally for the first time. So I do have to apologize in advance because this is the first time that we are doing it. So there might be some bumps or hiccups. So just bear with us. But I'm going to walk you through how to submit a public comment. So if you log on to westonps.org, and on the top toolbar, you will see Board of Education. You're going to click on that. And then on the left side, the very first kind of subcategories is public participation guidelines. You're going to click there. And then within the document, written in blue, about halfway down, you're going to see what says Google Form. So just click on Google Form. It's a live document right now, and it's feeding to myself and Meredith directly. You are going to need to fill out every space. So it includes your name, your address, and then your comment. And I just want to kind of reiterate our process. This is not a back and forth dialogue. I will read each comment as they come in with the name and the address attached. I will have 15 minutes to read all comments that come through. And then after those 15 minutes, we will cut it off. But any comment that was submitted during kind of our submission time will be posted for everyone to view at their leisure. So the document is live, like Tony said. We will have between now and when public comment starts, or you will have between now and when public comment starts to go in and type your comment.
Okay, thank you. Sorry that it's a little bit cumbersome to do. This was the easiest way we found to do it virtually, and hopefully it's effective and people can get their comments in without much trouble. The next thing is the approval of minutes. Can we have a motion?
I move that the Weston Board of Education approve the minutes from March 26, 2020.
Second? Second?
Oh, I second.
Second, sorry.
Okay. Any discussion, comments on the minutes? No? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Let's go to public comment now.
Tony, since we just kind of opened the form up literally 2 minutes ago, is there anything, I'd like to have the form up live for at least a minimum of 5 minutes, just so that the audience can have time to kind of go in, maneuver, and do what they need to do.
Okay. Are the student reps online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here.
So why don't how should we work this? I guess I need to make a motion to move this public comment to after the student rep comments.
Yep. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Okay. So motion passes to move the public comments to after the student rep comments. Let's move to hear from our student reps wherever they are on here. I don't see them.
We were only able to connect through conference call through our phones. I'm not sure why we weren't able to connect with video. So we had a little bit of trouble with that, but I am here. I believe Graham is online as well.
Hello.
Yeah, awesome. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're here. So, yeah.
Okay, yes, the floor is yours.
All right. So Q3 just ended, which was nice, and it wasn't obviously how we would love to have it end, but it actually ended very smoothly. I think all the grades were good at like modeling how actually students should have scored. So all went well in that. We are not having any finals at the end of Q4. And after surveying various members of all classes, the administration and students have decided that it would be best not to have a pass-fail grading system for the next quarter, and we will remain with the usual system. And APs are obviously not going to be the same. They are now these online 45-minute tests, and our teachers and fellow AP teachers from around the country have been uploading videos to YouTube, which is awesome and very helpful.
So as for senior internships, that obviously kind of isn't able to happen anymore for obvious reasons. So the executive team of government worked with the administration as well as some English teachers and other teachers in Weston High School to come up with this senior experience alternative. And we came up with two options. There's a portfolio that seniors can fill out and this kind of do-it-yourself exploration project that students can do. The portfolio is where students will review 4 artifacts from throughout their entire time at Weston High School. So that could be an essay, it could be a letter that they wrote, it could be, a photograph they took, a piece of artwork that they created in a digital or visual art class. We really wanted to be very flexible, and we wanted to give the opportunity for students who didn't like to reflect on their writing a ton to be able to reflect on their artwork. And it just gives students a chance to reflect on what they've learned throughout their time at Weston High School, whether it be through visual mediums, artistic mediums, writing, etc. And the other option is to, like I said before, the kind of create your own adventure project where seniors will create this product that they will showcase at the end of the few weeks that we're working on the project, and they'll be able to present it however they like to peers and some teacher mentors as well as some advisors. It's really up to the student. So a few examples of these projects that we're doing is one of our friends is creating these giant letters where she's decorating people's college acceptances on them and then handing them out to her friends for free. And she's creating this final project that's creative and reaching out to the community. So that's a big example. And we will be starting this on the Monday after the end of APs. So that's the Monday after May 22nd.
We also celebrated the 50th anniversary of Earth Week online, and we sent a list of things that all students could do to get involved and help clean up our planet while everyone was in quarantine. That was cleaning up yards and streets and a various amount of other things. And some of our own students, 2 juniors, I believe, created a video for Earth Day, and that got an honorable mention on C-SPAN, which is pretty cool.
So Weston Against Cancer, we're doing a lot for community outreach during this time, especially while we're kind of cooped up and there's not much to do. So we are participating in Givingtuesday. It's on May 5th. It's kind of this national day of remembering kindness and spreading kindness throughout our nation. And what we're doing is we're doing a few different initiatives for that. One, we're getting in touch with our representative at Memorial Sloan Kettering to see if there's any way that we can virtually interact with the children at Memorial Sloan Kettering's Cancer Hospital. And MSK is now getting involved in some COVID outreach and cures as well as treatment. So we're trying to see if we can get involved with fundraising for that, or even potentially making a video for the children at the hospital to kind of lift their spirits a little bit, give them some sort of interaction, because especially with those young cancer patients, interaction was very limited prior to this whole situation. And now, especially with the outbreak of the pandemic, it is really, really limited to immediate and necessary family members. So we're going to try to see if there's a way that we can interact with them and provide some sort of, fun and give them a smile to their day. We're also setting up a fundraiser where we're going to make greeting cards and friendship bracelets for people around town that would like, and we're just going to drop it in people's mailboxes. We got a lot of outreach that people would like some sort of thing like this, where we just drop off greeting cards. So we're going to sell those as well. And finally, we're also offering a tutoring service for the children around town who need it, especially with the distance learning. What we're doing is that there's no set price for the tutoring, but whatever the parents want to give is essentially a donation to MSK. And that money, all of it goes directly to the hospital and their COVID as well as their cancer outreach centers.
The Instagram account that Weston High School administrators are running it's also still going on, and we're having daily updates from teachers, which is nice. We get to see how they're all faring in quarantine. Nice to see everybody healthy and relatively happy, and we are having some student content as well. It's a nice way to stay connected. It keeps some spirit alive.
Can I just say that I don't think you guys are doing enough and that you ought to get out there and help a little more?
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, really amazing.
Thank you. Additionally, the music department is offering virtual concerts on Facebook Live for students to watch. It's a little bit trickier with online learning, obviously, for the different ensembles at our school to play together. And we're trying to do as much as we can, sending in recordings, compiling music videos together, but it's really not the same as getting together and playing. So our music teachers have set up this program where we can go on Facebook and watch concerts and interact with real professional musicians, and it's really interesting. Last week, we actually had Miss Stewart, the orchestra teacher. She brought on one of her colleagues who's a harp player, and people got to watch her play and then ask her questions, and she actually responded, which was really, really unique because we don't have a harp in our normal band and orchestra, so that was really unique and cool to be a part of.
We also have a virtual May Day coming up, which is going to actually be a bit more like May to June Day because a lot of colleges have pushed back their deposit dates. But it's nice because we traditionally have on the 1st of May, all students show up to school in some of the college attire of the school that they had just made their deposit to and committed to. But we are now going to send photos to the PTO, and they are going to make some nice collage, which will be very sweet and interesting.
And then we just wanted to finish with a thank you. I know we kind of sound like a broken record thanking our teachers and administration and PTO, and the Board of Education as well. But we truly just appreciate so much what our district is doing for us. The PTO with trying to give us, this experience with virtual May Day, and all of our teachers working tirelessly to make sure that our distance learning classes are as engaging as in-person classes. And we just truly appreciate everything that is being put into it because we know that this time is obviously unprecedented. Nobody really knows what's going to happen or what the future looks like, but we are truly grateful for everything that everyone in this district is doing for us and is helping us, to kind of have some sense of normalcy and routine amongst all this chaos. So truly thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much. It's actually very incredible that we can have any routine at all and we're able to continue learning and have teachers and administrators and all of you guys that are so willing and ready to help and able to come up with such great and unique ideas to really continue all the learning. Thank you.
Well, I think it's not only a testament to our teachers and administration, but also our students who are so highly motivated to just in a difficult situation, just to make something good out of it. I mean, and if you hear of all the things that are being accomplished, small things as well as big things, helping people, trying to fill in the gaps in terms of social interactions, is just great to hear. And this is exactly why Weston is the school district it is. I thank you, the students, for also, stepping up and contributing, and not only surviving, but thriving in this environment. It's really a great thing to see and to hear. Any questions? Okay, let's move to our public comment. Ruby.
Okay, so I have one comment from Jen and Greg Haythorne, 6th Winthrop Hill. Thanks to the entire board for their work during this very challenging time. We are glad to know all of you are safe and healthy, and pleased as parents to report only favorable feedback on high school distance learning and virtual school so far. Keep up the good work. We have the following public comments and questions on the board's budget-related agenda items for this evening. We recognize that this is not a Q&A, but would hope for a thorough and timely public response in the coming days. This past Friday, the district superintendent, in his dual capacity as Chief Executive Officer of the Weston Board of Education, sent an email to all Weston district families informing them that the BOE approved budget increase, quote, cannot be reduced, end quote, despite a global pandemic and regardless of the fact that scores of Weston families will be facing incalculable financial hardship. Given his assigned CEO role, it is reasonable for most families and PTO members to conclude that when he formally communicates, he does so on behalf of the BOE and its members. Therefore, does the BOE endorse the superintendent's statement as an absolute fact in the manner it was clearly intended? And by extension, does the BOE endorse, as some are entitled to, some are entitled to be, quote, less in this together than others, end quote. In the event the BOD does not endorse the superintendent's email of April 24th, how does the board plan to address the widespread parent confusion and dismay regarding the superintendent's communication on budget and distance learning? Second, following on the heels of the University of Connecticut's public request for its staff to begin formulating distance learning plans for the fall semester through the end of the calendar year, the superintendent in his email raises the increasingly likely prospect of the Western District doing the same and implies a great net increase in the financial cost to do so. Unless the net cost effect of all 4 schools being closed through the end of the year has already been fully analyzed and calculated as of this past Friday by the BOE, how does the BOE recommend Weston parents and voters interpret the superintendent's warning? Have in fact all costs and scenarios and savings been fully vetted by senior administrators and board members? And if not, how in good conscience can the BOE, the BOS, or the BOF even consider a budget timeable that seeks to pass a status quo for school full year operating budget before either the governor's, quote, reopening, end quote, advisory committee informs I always get stuck with this word, municipalities about public school reopening plans, or the governor's 30-day budget extension expires in late June. Third, in preparation for increasing likely closure of CT public schools through the end of the calendar year, as of this meeting, has the Weston BOE or any Weston board requested of the legislature or governor a waiver of Connecticut's minimum budget requirement act to obtain the flexibility to reduce outright the coming school year's budget? If Hartford is not going to waive the MBR for Weston, or all districts for that matter, has the BOE begun contingency planning to close WMS or one of the other 3 schools so that Weston residents will not be forced to fully fund the continued operation of an excess school facility during an indefinite forced district school closure? Fourth and last, we observed agenda item 8H, the reduction in force for teachers. Why is the BOE considering only teacher furloughs or even layoffs within tonight's agenda, especially when teachers are about the only district staff position fully required at this point for distance learning? For the record, from our perspective, the notion of an indiscriminate teacher layoff is unforgivable given the documentable spending excess and waste in virtually every other district operating account. In conclusion, despite the hard work of the BOE earlier this year to arrive at its budget recommendation, that top-down recommendation for reductions to the administrator's requested increase is now rendered irrelevant by a global pandemic. The world for which it was created for no longer exists and may not again for the foreseeable future, particularly as it relates to public education. For this reason, we hope that the BOE has planned accordingly and will be adding the necessary public meetings to exhaustively plan for a flexible future with maximum community input. At the least, it would be helpful to receive a weekly BOE communication from the Communications Committee on your work, which we can only assume continues largely out of the public view. Unprecedented times calls for unprecedented response and innovations. Thank you again and stay safe. Meredith, can you just confirm on your end that only one comment came through during the open time period?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks to public for their comment. And if that's it on public comment, let's move to new business. Bill, COVID-19 update?
Yes, let me hand it off to Ken, who's going to provide that update with Mike Rizzo, Craig Tunks, but certainly have the four principals. And we'll let Laura's mic get time to get warmed up because we know it's a bit like a plane coming off the runway. Once it's at speed, it's warmed up. So anyway, but I'll hand it off now. And thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Good evening, everyone. Just please give you another update on distance learning, and the principals will join me for this. We have moved through different phases of distance learning, and we're now in the phase that's going to take us through to the end of the year, where we're really looking across the district now to have a balance of live teaching and recorded videos throughout the system. And each building has come up with a developmentally appropriate approach. And I think that certainly the high school went right out of the gates with that approach. But now, as a system, I think you'll hear in this update, how we have really while it feels like a long time that we've been out of school, that in a very short time, really, the system has made a huge leap in terms of being able to use the available tools and meet the needs of students to the best extent possible. So with that, I'll let the principals chime in here, and then Mike can do cleanup from a special ed perspective afterwards. So I don't know if Laura, your mic is working. If not, we can.
I think it is. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No? No.
Okay, we can come back, and if not, I can provide the Hurlbut update. If Laura can't get that corrected, but if we can move up the ranks, Patty, your microphone, Patty.
Sure. I thought Lisa was coming up, but yes. So, I really want to start out by giving a big shout out to my whole staff. This was a big, steep learning curve for them to embrace, and they enthusiastically stepped up, and they really wanted to do what was best for helping our students succeed. And I really kudos goes to all of them. We all of our teachers, both our academic teachers as well as our special areas teachers, do lesson plans every day. Teachers start out with morning meetings. They set the tone for the day, the things that the students need to work on, and then the students go through the various tasks, both live meets as well as video instruction. So it's a combination at this point, though we're weaving in more live meets. Students meet in small groups, they meet one-on-one, they reach out to teachers, and then listen to lessons through audio, slides, and Screencastify, and any kind of engaging ways that teachers can grab their attention and help them to learn. In addition, we keep our Google Classrooms open also to do some fun, and we have our morning announcements page. Our school counseling has a Google Classroom. We have something very fun that we're going to be introducing tomorrow, which I can't quite share yet, but that'll be fun for the students. So we're moving on as much as we can possibly do, whatever our students need. We just are providing those supports for them, both individual supports as well as whole class supports.
Okay. Dan, I know you've gone to some live teaching.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you. Yeah, we did, quite the transition. A couple weeks ago, after the curriculum committee meeting of the board, Ken and I did some talking about how we might be able to transition to more live classes. We were originally doing asynchronous classes in what eventually ended up being phase 2, when we didn't know there was going to be a phase 3. But once we learned that we were going to be in this really for the long haul or the foreseeable future, we came up with a plan. It was modeled largely on the high school model, where all of our classes, the academic classes, will meet live for 30 minutes twice a week. The PFA, the practical fine arts classes, meet live once a week, which is the same proportion that we would have met in terms of regular meetings in the building itself. Some of the other, I want to give a shout out to, just like Patty did. This really was a major effort on the part of the faculty and staff at Weston Middle School to be able to make this transition to what is basically 4 out of the 5 days each week being live instruction. Especially, I want to recognize the work of our PPS team. The Pupil Services team had already in phase 2 developed very personalized and individual schedules to make sure they were meeting the needs of the students. And the idea of coming in and overlaying a schedule on top of that was a rather daunting task. But as Patty said, I think our staff, once they figured out, that we need to do whatever's right for the students, quickly came to the conclusion that they could handle this. They could find a way to make it work. So we have a schedule that has regular meetings for the scheduled classes, and students are still getting services in addition to that without pulling them away from the live instruction from the classroom teachers. I also think just giving a shout out to Helen Knudsen for developing the Student Resources for Distance Learning website, which is a place where we post our daily morning show, which starting week 3 of the distance learning, Evan, Grace, and the students took back over and are doing a fantastic job. We post that, as well as links to teacher websites, the live classes where the teachers are actually holding their sessions, and their office hours, because in addition to the live classes, the teachers are also having office hours daily. And there's other tips as well on that website, which is linked on the Weston Middle School website, the Distance Learning for Student Resources. So some of the early feedback from both our curriculum instructional leaders, team leaders, and individual teachers is that despite some initial anxiety, students are able to manage the schedule, and the teachers are finding it actually very productive. They love seeing the students, via Google Hangouts, the Google Meets app that we're using, and students are able to, get the instruction that they need, or email teachers or see teachers for extra help time. So again, I think it was a big transition, not easy for everybody. We did lose some of the flexibility that our asynchronous model allowed both students, families, and the teachers. But by and large, people are finding it a positive change. And once again, just thank you to the staff for making this happen.
Thanks to you all for making it happen too. I think it was a really big transition, and certainly a transition in the student experience as well, which I think is what matters. And I really appreciate your hard work. Please extend that to everybody in the middle school.
Laura, Lisa? No, your microphone. Lisa, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry. I thought Laura was going to go.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So, the kids pretty much said it all, but the one thing I want to emphasize is that we have had some really incredible speakers. They touched on the harpist. She was awesome. I happened to join that on Facebook. There is also, we're having an author come to the 10th grade honors English classes as part of the identity unit. We have another author coming into our creative writing classes. We have an ESPN reporter that's talking about a review that he wrote on a basketball movie for English 12. We had a researcher talk to the AP Psych kids on the social and moral development of infants. We had a businessman come in and talk to economics. So, we have not had so many guest speakers. And what I'm hoping is now people see how easy it is that once we are back in the class, all you have to do is log on. They just reached out to all of these people and brought them in. And I'm so proud of them. The other thing is that you might be wondering what happened to Art Jam. Art Jam is going to continue. There is a link that the art department has put together with a lot of the high school art, and then there's links to the other schools. Again, teachers just did this. I mean, my feeling is just tell them, go ahead and do it, and they figure out a way and they do it with more collaboration than I've seen, and more good-spirited work and positivity. So I echo what the other principal said. My staff's amazing. Okay, Laura.
I think Laura's trying to get through on the phone.
All right. Mike, from a SPED perspective, while we're waiting for Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with kudos to the staff pre-K to 12. I've really done an amazing job. Some of the most creative ideas have been described to me about how they're implementing services, to the greatest extent possible based on kids' IEPs. Really, really impressive stuff on very short order. We continue to follow guidance from the state of Connecticut regarding special education programs, trying to work obviously within that guidance. Again, kudos to the staff and all the administrator team as well. The guidance that was provided by the state last Friday afternoon included some templates for the design of distance learning plans and what they might look like, and the importance of communication. Those templates largely looked like what Weston had developed and provided a month earlier to our families. So it was very much, we were ahead of the game. We were able to provide this kind of information to our families. And really, again, kudos to the staff for getting out there ahead of that and providing that work with students. New developments, we're going to start moving forward with a more comprehensive set of planning and placement team meetings. We've been doing some meetings up till now, but the emphasis has really been on working with students and getting those structures in place. We will start to run some planning and placement team meetings. We'll develop a priority around how those get done. and address those in a systematic way so that we can continue that process with students and their families. We're still awaiting guidance on extended school year services. They continue to say it will be out shortly. So as soon as we get it, we will look at that and integrate that into our practices in Weston. But other than that, it's been just a lot of creativity, a lot of hard work, and I've heard, from anecdotally from parents as well as staff that it's been a good experience so far.
Thanks, Mike. And one last time, Laura, we'll just see if we can hear you. No? Go ahead. No. I'll just add for Laura, Hurlbut, nice. Sorry you're having technical difficulties, Laura. Hurlbut, K2, learning wasn't intended to be delivered online, particularly at the youngest ages. So we're just so thrilled with what our teachers, students, and families have done at that level. It's truly been a partnership because, in order to have the 1 or 2 small group sessions a week that a student is engaged in with their teacher, they need the parent, obviously, to assist at times, most of the time, in order for the student to stay logged in, engaged. And so we really do appreciate what the parents are doing. What teachers have done has been nothing less than phenomenal in terms of their daily greetings. And, they're not working in whole group. That just does not work at K2 with online learning. They're working in individual and small group formats, which, we're continuing to move forward with literacy, with math, and in that format. And we'll continue to build the K2 along the way. So, Laura, does that just a nod if you agree?
Yeah, I might kind of, if I may, because Laura and I just talked last week, and Laura, if you want to start, I know that's like a jet plane. It works. If you start talking, it'll actually pick up. But what I thought would be very helpful to the board, let me try and, you're starting. Keep going. Keep talking, because it'll.
I know this takes a while to get warmed
Yeah,
up.
there you go.
Yay! All right, sorry about that. I've literally been on Google Meet since 8 o'clock this morning. I think I wore it out. So just to round out what Ken said, I really appreciate Ken stepping in. As Ken said, this really was a tremendous transition for our school. We were the only school that did not already have an online learning platform built in prior to all of this happening. So we really had a big ramp up in the beginning. It was an enormous learning curve for our staff, for our students, and for our families. And our teachers all of our staff just jumped in and worked unbelievably hard and long hours to get it up and running, so that when we kicked off the first day of distance learning, we were doing daily videos for our students so that they could see their teacher. We just felt that community connection was very important. And in the second week, we had already started dabbling in Google Meet so that the live interactions could happen back and forth. And that's an area that we continue to try to expand upon and to try to maximize, as we think ahead to most likely ending the school year this way. We really want to use those live interactions to the maximum ability that we can. So our teachers are working on that now. We have prioritized our curriculum. While we have all of the curriculum represented and lessons available online, we really are putting a lot of emphasis in the reading and writing areas. And I did, besides recognizing our staff, I just wanted to thank all of our families as well. No matter how well we design this, there is an important role for the adults in the home to help our young learners navigate all of this. We really do need a lot of adult support in the home for our students to be able to have these learning opportunities. They're not independent yet. Our families need to get them on the computer, need to facilitate those experiences. And I do know that places a burden on our families. We do hear particularly from families where, all of the adults in the home are trying to work from home and support their young children, often multiple young children. It is a really big juggle for them. So we've worked, over the weeks to try to organize the Google Classrooms and make them as easy as possible to navigate. But the reality is, no matter how we do that, there is a level of adult support that's required for our young children. We've seen particularly at the preschool level, it's really just hard for them to grasp the fact that they're seeing their teacher on the computer rather than in person. So that's an area we continue to work on. And as we look to the next month and a half of this type of learning, we are looking for us at the last, kind of rounding all this out. Now that our students have been doing this for a while, we're getting some good information back on the learning and looking at all of that information. Our students are now able to, video themselves reading a book or, have learned enough about the technology to be able to submit things back to the teacher. And we're getting some good data from our programs that we're using. So we're looking at that and what does that tell us as we plan for the remainder of the school year. I did just want to also include, because it's really timely right now, I have been spending a lot of time talking to incoming kindergarten parents and answering a lot of their questions about what this distance learning means. For the area preschools too, their year was cut short. And there's a lot of concern, in the community, and it's very helpful for them to be able to see us and talk to us, see us virtually, but to talk to us about what's going on and for me to be able to answer all their questions.
Laura, what are some of the preschool parents, what kinds of questions and what kinds of concerns do they have?
Some of the concerns come from the fact that their school year was cut short as well. The preschool, the local area preschools, in addition to our own preschool, really have done a nice job keeping that community connection, reaching out to the families, talking to the children online. But parents are worried that because they didn't get, finish their preschool year, are they going to be at a disadvantage starting their kindergarten year? And will the transition be more difficult? Mm-hmm. The reality is everybody's going through this right now, and it's not even just Weston, it's international. So they're not losing out any more than any other child, particularly around here. Nobody's going to preschool right now physically. And it is something that we are thinking about as we talk about the transition into kindergarten. We've moved most of our transition activities online so that parents have the information. And, we've always personalized. We had individual meetings scheduled for parents before this happened, and we're just doing that through Google Meets and online. So the incoming parents can meet us, talk to us, and we get to hear, their individual concerns and answer their questions.
One of the things that I was wondering about for the lower schools, because of the, just the isolation, right? And wondering if there's any, are any of the social emotional issues becoming more acute? This, I guess, is for Mike and Laura in the lower schools. I mean, are you seeing anything that is out of the ordinary versus what you would be seeing in a normal, classroom setting?
I think it really varies by family, and Mike can certainly jump in from what he's hearing. A lot of the concerns I'm hearing from the incoming kindergarten families is a little bit of the opposite. Very young children love their families. They love, any time with the adults in the home or their parents is, it's what they want. So the concern is a little bit more of, is it going to be harder for them to transition into school than it would have been otherwise? We're hearing mixed reviews from the summer camps about whether or not they're going to even be able to open this summer.
Right.
So if the children are at home for even more of an extended period of time, is that going to make the transition back into school?
The separation.
Harder than it used to be. Yeah, that separation.
Yeah.
So, and we know that's a reality, and we're already talking about what we can do to help ease that, should that happen.
Just to the principals, as you know, there was a memo letter sent out from the entire Board of Education to every staff member in Weston, and it was a very heartfelt, deep appreciation to every single staff member and what they've been able to accomplish. I don't want it to be a one and done from the Board of Ed. I want that continual appreciation to be, communicated to the teachers every single time you speak with them, because I think what they've been able to accomplish is truly unprecedented here. And I know, just to echo about Hurlbut, you know, these teachers were not even live on Google Classroom, on the platform. They were literally burning the candle at both ends. You have teachers who have, you know, 4 children at home, all under the age of 9, you know, and still what she sends through on a daily basis in terms of videos, not just written content, but true videos. It's amazing, robust learning, and the Google Meets that she continues to do with having 4 children at home. Or another teacher who is still driving up to Boston Hospital because one of her children is sick and she still needs to, you know, go to Boston Hospital for checkups. I mean, these teachers are truly doing, you know, superhuman things right now. And so it just, to all 4 principals, please continue from the Board of Education to just say how much we appreciate them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said, Ruby.
Yeah. That did mean a lot to them to hear that. Get the letter from the Board of Ed. It was very powerful.
Questions, comments from other board members?
Tony, if I could just add one thing, one thing that wasn't mentioned, and I think it really deserves to be mentioned, is the work that the IT department has done, both with the structure to support teachers and families, with the twice a week drop off and pickup. It's been so helpful for my staff as well as some of the families at the middle school, as well as the educational technology that's been delivered. I really love the idea of these flex days continuing in phase 3. The teachers really appreciate the opportunities for professional development and collaboration. But the work that Craig Tunks and Juscelino and each building technician, as well as our library media specialists, is what's making this robust learning possible. So I wanted just to say that.
You know, I also, you know, I have two comments. One is, you know, sometimes biggest innovation comes when change is forced on you, right? And boy, you know, was change forced on us this time. And I bet there's going to be some things that come out of this that stay in our toolbox to enhance how we deliver education in the future. And hopefully there's a silver lining to this, that you know, there's a bunch of things that we wouldn't be even considering if our frame of reference didn't change. And once it changed, all of a sudden those things that didn't seem possible became an everyday occurrence, albeit really hard to do. But hopefully we keep that, and that further enhances how we deliver education in the future. It just, you know, keeping that in mind, because I don't think any of this should go to, as much as we're doing an incredible job, we have to take some of this and learn from it. The other thing is that, and this may be, even though it's early days, I think it's important for the broader community to know that that while we phased into the whole district learning framework, we're also going to have to phase out of it, right? And it's not going to be to turn on a light switch. And I think that it's got to be incremental. We really don't know what those increments are until, I guess, the governor comes out and gives us even a little bit of guidance. But that's something that I know I've spoken to Bill about, maybe he can comment, that we have to start thinking about as soon as the governor comes out with some framework and guidelines for how we're going to phase out of this, both from a curriculum, facilities, as well as a financial perspective. And so while there is no specifics now, I think that within the committees, probably soon, we're going to start thinking about frameworks for phasing back to what's going to be normal, to the extent it will be normal, and how this will work over whatever period of time we need to phase this into. I don't know, Bill, if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's good question, Tony. And I think all of cabinet, the principals know that we're really heavily focused on, we've talked about airplanes taking off for Laura's piece, but Deb Meyer was the one who created the quote, you know, you're building the airplane while you're flying it, to quote Deb Meyer. we literally are doing that, and it's happening internationally. And I just want to underscore what Tony said, because there's a lot more collaboration going on, and that's certainly happening amongst the superintendents, but I know that's happening amongst the principals, and that's both within district, but certainly across districts. And I mean, there's a lot of new learning we're going to hold on to. But very specifically, we're so busy and the energy is so high and the fatigue level is creeping up. And I have to watch that manage it. So board, your letter out was gigantic. It was energizing. It was supportive. I think the willingness to keep sending out such letters, the negotiating committee not as negotiating, they meant a listening session with leadership of the WTA. That's going to continue, just to listen, not to negotiate, just to listen. That's vital. We shared that this week with Doug Pregman and Eric Fisher. They were appreciative of that. So all of this attempt by the board to listen and be present, obviously through our digital means, is critical. To be very specific, the decision to close was driven by larger authorities, medical, public health, in the town. Decisions to reopen will be guided by larger authorities. That's going to be the governor and their guidance on phasing back in. And so that's what we're waiting on. By May 20th, some amount of guidance. I put a hunch out to the community Friday. I've generally received positive feedback for that, especially how I explained the hunch. I was trying to mitigate against disappointment. Somewhat of that I had my parent hat on, because I go home and I look at a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old wondering, will I get back to school, different district? And so I sort of play that out more broadly, but it'll be a phasing back in. And we are working on that. So we already are going to do some conversations about contractual issues. That's underway. We're going to be doing some conversations with the principals about what are you thinking. But the heavy duty planning, we really got to get after that when we get a little later in the year, get some guidance from the governor. The other marker, because fundamentally it's about education and teaching and learning, next month you will get the annual instructional update. That's being designed by Ken and the principals and the SILs to give you as a board and then the community a sense of, and I put that in the statement out Friday to everybody, to give you a sense of where were we up until COVID-19, now where are we with distance learning, and what's our early prognosis for gaps and where we'll need to be. And that'll begin to give us something to organize around.
Yep.
Last thing, and it's actually a very helpful checklist. Hillary, you circulated, others have circulated that NPR checklist of about 9 items. It's excellent. That's why it's, I think, gone so far. But we have to bear in mind that at each element of that, they had experts elsewhere saying, unless you get your testing level up, a lot of this is going to be questionable. And so that's where, like it or not, we are subject to higher authorities here, before we can open up and get to where we need. But I just want to assure you, we're working on it. We're actively working on it. We'll tie it into the board committee so you see where we are. But again, it's your first test, your first look at it will be with the annual instructional update next month.
Yep. Okay, great. There's no other questions. Let's move to the discussion of the coordinator of information technology. Bill, maybe you can also just give some context around the plan here as well.
Yeah, it's a discussion and a vote.
Okay.
And this is before you with the very gigantic, and I can't underscore this enough. This is before you understanding how severe the financial situation is for us as a nation. I mean, we all get it. Highest unemployment rate since the 1930s. I mean, we understand that. I mean, this is a time to be a public sector employee, especially in Connecticut. We all feel grateful, because it is a time that, we understand that. This is a proposal to reinstate a reduction. It was a very difficult reduction. I know it was very difficult for the board to make this reduction when you did. That was done in a different context. It was done in the context of no idea of what we'd be heading into right now. Also, no idea that we would not have our longstanding director of digital learning and technology with us as we transitioned into the new year. Given that seat is open, we are working actively to fill it. The board will be involved in that. The board will make the final decision on that appointment. It was clear to us that this is one of those selective positions and lines that as we think about where we are now, but certainly next fall, because as you've said, Tony and others, we will phase back in. I don't think there's anyone who in their right mind thinks that boom, in September, we'll be back to full school as we know. We'll be phasing back in. So distance learning is going to be a part of what we do, thus having to be very strong in educational technology and information technology is going to be vital to where we are. The hard reality is right now with Dr. Tunks leaving, as of June 30th, if this position is not refilled, we have no ongoing leadership at the top. We have some good sets of candidates to come in to fill that seat. We're in process with them, but they would be brand new. There are a couple internal candidates, but they would still be brand new to that seat. And so the feeling is, and the principal is unanimous behind this, the assistant principals, cabinet is unanimous to say a 1-year reinstatement, not multiple years, a 1-year reinstatement to allow the new director to have the IT expertise with them while they get adjusted in, and then they working with, and the report right now is to the assistant super for curriculum instruction, working with that assistant superintendent, working with the board on in future out years, how would we organize this particular IT function? Would it be dispersed out amongst the building IT staff? Might it be adjusted some, but at least in this first year with a brand new director of digital learning and technology, have consistency that's critical. I've asked the principals to stay on for this part of the meeting. I've generally been saying, please take a break at night. But for this, I've asked them to stay on because they have very strong points of view about why this position is critical. Obviously, you have Ken on the call, Mike on the call, myself, we can speak more to it. But let me go full circle. There's not a thing we do now where we're not highly sensitive to how difficult the financial situation is. And this is brought with great sense of that. And we're going to, any opening, we're going to scrutinize it. But this is something we feel we really need to get refilled.
Just one item that I want to add to that is that reinstatement of this is budget 2021 budget neutral, right?
Correct. The plan is, as you see in the document, is that we would subtract out the equivalent of what's to be added back in, and that would be a to be determined. It would be a bit like the line that you approved when you put in the $175,000 reduction to be determined for the cabinet level. This would be more district-wide, and we would work as we got into FY21. We would look to find that savings. We head towards FY21. There may be some personnel adjustments that allow us to take advantage of that, but we would, if this reinstatement comes in, it would be budget neutral. So that's why we laid that out very clearly on the end of second page. Is you're currently at a 2.28 increase, just to keep it simple. That's the lowest level in multiple years that's been put forward to the town by the board. So congratulations on that. This would keep it still at a 2.28.
Yeah. Now, the one comment I have on this is one area where I think as a board, we may have to look at this more tactical than strategic. Because when we first eliminated the position, we were thinking a little bit more strategically about the overall configuration of the department. I think now with the risk of actually having 2 open seats at the end of June, or at the end of July, sorry, we run the risk of, we're running a risk that we may or may not think is appropriate. And so it's forcing us to think a little bit more tactically as to make sure that we cover that risk best as possible until we make a decision on the new director. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, let me underscore, it's actually end of June, not
End of
July.
June, sorry, yeah.
So basically 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks, we would not have any sustained ongoing knowledge running digital learning and technology, which right now, witness everything you've heard, is our backbone. That's our backbone for delivering teaching and learning right now.
Bill, I just have one question about the plan. understanding the tactical need to reinstate this position, would there be an agreement put in place with the individual to ensure that they stay here for the life of that agreement? Because we're trying to put some stability in place. So is there going to be some sort of agreement in place for the individual here?
Yeah, so let me speak generically, but I think I can be safe here. The individual who's in this seat, that individual knows the discussions are going on. So I think from an HR standpoint, I'm very free to talk. Still won't use names, but I'm free to talk in some particular sense because that individual has been fully advised of this conversation we're having here, and has also been fully advised of exactly what you're asking, Gina. So it's very fair for me to say, I went to the individual, I said, we are proposing this reinstatement. It's for the line. It's not a comment or an evaluation of you. It's about the line. When it was removed, it was never about you as an individual. It was about that line position. We now are reinstating it, but there are several conditions. One is, as stated in the memo, it's for 1 year only, then to be considered what will happen after that. Two, because that has been this person's position, they have first right for it. To come back into it, if it's reinstated, they haven't left, but to continue in it. But to say, we would want you to commit for the year. We would want you to commit for the full next school year. However, if indeed the position's removed, we still would say, like with any of us in the district, we would still want you to work through that remainder of that full year. Obviously, you could be in a search process for another position, but give us that entire school year. And it's predicated on continued good performance. So those were the 3 points of discussion. The individual was in complete agreement with all of that and completely understood that. And the fact of the matter is, as you know, because many of you have just been around schools and education a lot, there is a calendar to it that typically positions whether or not reinstated. People look winter, spring, but they don't look to take that new appointment to that transition point in the new year. So if I'm being clear.
Yeah, I think we also need and I think whoever we hire in the director spot also, I think, needs to, along with the board and the administration, to have the flexibility to reconfigure his or her department in a way that makes sense. I also think that we will have another discussion when that right candidate appears about strategy, vision, and what the right configuration of the department is as well.
I think Ken's managing that current search process for the new director of digital learning and technology. The board will be involved in that, as you know. You both will be involved in the interview process. Then there'll be a recommendation, and you'll have the final decision on the candidate. As has always gone on, at least since I've been here, we're having preliminary conversations with the range of top candidates. Every single one of them has inquired about the status of this. They know this was on the agenda. They saw that. They actually were very encouraged. They know that's not decided. They were very encouraged that the board was reconsidering it. And they also were very pleased that there was flexibility in this, that it's not getting locked back in, as opposed to it seemed, if you will, Tony, tactically, to help a transition work, and that they, whomever's picked, would have a lead role, ultimately decided by the board, but would have a lead role in determining the future design. That this is really a bridge, if you will, to put another image to it. It's a bridge to let us go from the current staffing and leadership into the new phase, but with flexibility to where we end up. But again, I can't underscore enough, as I talked with the principals about this, cabinet, is this the type of thing we want to bring back to the board, knowing how difficult the financial situation is, strong unanimous feeling that in a bridge way, a transition way, this was an essential move.
Let's open it up for questions.
I have a comment / question. So I do think it's a good move to take these steps in order to ease the transition. But I'd also like to petition between now and the transition of Craig. We have a window where we have to think about the onboarding of the new the new individual in that role. And I'd just like to urge the administration to take advantage of this window to document the items so that there's the appropriate knowledge transfer from Craig to his successor, and that there's a robust onboarding plan for that individual. So as we're trying to recruit this position, one of the things that I want to know as a candidate is how am I going to be brought up to speed, and how is that transfer going to take place?
Yeah, Victor, it's an excellent question. I can assure you that since I've been here, we've done that the entire time. So any of the transitions from Lois Pernice into Mike Rizzo, we worried about that greatly. Even Lewis's departure into Ken and I handling that, we spent about 2 months transitioning so that Ken and I are ready to handle that. And then on the internal counsel side, ready to hand it off. And very specifically, that's already started with this. Given that the position is right now a line reporting into Dr. Craw, already Craig and Ken have been working actively on beginning to do exactly what you've asked. And so it's very well stated. You put it very clearly and definitely, and we will be doing that and have started it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Can we bring this to a vote? Can I have a motion?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve reinstating the Coordinator of Information Technology position for FY21.
Second?
I second it. Victor?
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 We don't have all the ayes.
Aye. Sorry, aye, Ruby.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, Hillary? Hillary?
Aye.
Okay.
Yeah, hi.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's move to the next item, which just was removed from my computer right now.
Oh, it's
Sorry.
Calendar approval.
Calendar approval, yeah. It just disappeared from my screen. All right, Bill?
It's not the governor telling us that it's his decision, is it?
No.
All right.
No.
Ruby got my joke. Ken, we're going to proceed though, Tony. You ready to move that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I love to hand off the heavy lifting to Ken Cross. So Ken, you ready? Here you go. So Ken, are you not connecting with us right now?
Ken's muted.
Ken, you're muted, but it also looks like your connection is slowed.
All right, so let me start while Ken's getting pieced together here. As you know, and we have a board member on this committee, this is an annual process for the board to establish the calendar. That's one of the critical decision points a Board of Ed makes. The process here is to have you look at the already approved calendar for next school year. The committee brings forward typically very modest recommendations, and then any adjustments here are an important vote, but the big decision is for that next school year, in this case 21-22. This is when it's established, and as happens in many districts, this is a forward-looking process so that families, staff, and others can plan. Now, a big caveat here is our calendar may need to change some for next year, but we don't know what the basis of that would be. It may need to change for 21-22. We don't know the basis for that. But a critical governor for us in any of this is our contractual relationships and obligations. You know that for our teachers, it's 187 days, and you know it's roughly $250,000 to add a day. So my hunch is that for most districts, we're going to be staying in that 187 window. So I don't want to kind of bring up more stuff than need be. But I think for you as a board, the cleanest move right now is to work with what the committee has recommended for any modifications for the coming year, 2021, which there are a few. It's all in the memoranda. And then talk about, are you satisfied or not with then the 21-22 calendar. Again, there could be lots of questions about what might change. I just would recommend that this decision get made tonight, and we can always come back to modify later once we have more information. And so I don't know if Ken's back yet, or a board member who's in the process may want to speak to it. I think the administration representative might have been Matt Phillip. So I don't know if Hillary, you were on the committee, if you have any comments, or are there any questions, but this may be fairly straightforward.
I would echo what you just said, which is that we spent a lot of time going over each and every day, each and every professional development, all the breaks. I thought the committee was very well represented, and, this could all change tomorrow. So, I think we presented a very reasonable calendar for the next 2 years, and, that's where we are today.
Okay. Every time we go over the calendar, I think of our former board member, Dan McNeil, who this was the favorite part of his job, was doing the calendar every year. He's probably even listening in. So can we have a motion?
I move that the Weston Board of Education approve the adds, deletes, and changes to the approved 2021 calendar.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All opposed? Motion passed. All right. Financial update. We have Phil.
Do we need a motion on the 2021?
Yeah, you've got to do the next vote. They're separated intentionally.
Okay, yeah, let's do the next vote. Motion on the next vote?
Sure. Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the proposed 2021-22 calendar.
Second?
Second. Gina.
Thank you, Gina. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Now we go to Phil, and there you are, and the financial update.
Hey, Tony. Yeah, Phil, let me interrupt. Principals, if you want to step off, this would be, unless the board disagrees with me, I don't think they will. I want to thank you for spending some extra time with us tonight, but
yeah, thank you.
This was sort of the pivot point I promised them. So if that's all right, I'll let them head off to make sure we all have teaching and learning tomorrow.
Right. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Okay. So this is the 9th financial update for fiscal year 20. Just want to reiterate, this is as of March 31st. So I know there's a lot of questions that could be pending, but this report is primarily directed or focused on results as of March 2020. For the year to date, as of March, we have actual expenditures of $37,537,660. We have encumbrance holds currently at $14,578,862, and we have anticipated expenditure of $939,722. For the year to date, projected year end is currently a surplus at $17,466. As you guys may recall, that over the past several months, we've definitely been working on reviewing all of our encumbrances, and we've questioned all of our expenditure just to ensure that we would be able to mitigate deficits that we currently have, and we're still in the process of doing that. We currently have a budget freeze in place just to mitigate any additional overages that we have for the year. We still have to deal with current deficits, so to speak, in the line item for health insurance. So currently, that's where we are. We have, in term moving on to transfers, we have 7 transfers in excess of $5,000 that will need board approval. Just going down line by line. Line item 1, $74,276, which is to cover sped out of district transportation overage. Item 2, $26,000, which is to cover anticipated septic, the routine septic treatment and pumping. Item 3, $11,235, which is to cover end of year supplies for our custodians. 126, $214 and 27 cents. This is to really cover what we projected at that time, anticipated district-wide legal fees that would be needed to cover deficits for legal. Item 5, $98,586 and 86 cents. This is to cover a district-wide leave of absence subs. Item 6, $10,142. This is specifically for extra work that was needed to cover a leave of absence sub at the high school. Item 7, $81,523. This was to cover an unanticipated retroactive payment for a pension for seniors. Any questions on the financials and transfers?
Phil, at the FinCom meeting, we had talked about having a memo so we could more fully explain to the full board the pension contribution issue. Do we have that?
Phil, you want me to answer that, or you want him?
Can you please?
Yeah, good question. It's in process. We are working through that. As often it relates to some, we are wanting to bring very detailed information on that. It goes back several years, so we've been pulling that together. It has required a little extra review, so was not ready for tonight. So you may have to factor that into how you handle this particular one. But we're wanting to bring you a very thorough analysis that's also very accurate and would be very clear on that we have procedures going forward to avoid similar situations in the future.
I mean, I think the feeling coming out of FinCom is that particular item, as long as Phil is comfortable, that we may postpone the vote on that one item until everyone can have the full.
Gina, I didn't hear your original question. Sorry.
The $81,523 for unanticipated pension contribution. There's a backstory and there are reasons why this is needed. And there was a memo being put together to be able to fully explain this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we had talked about possibly delaying the vote on that particular transfer until the board could have full information about it. So.
Yep. Okay.
I'm sorry about that. It was my impression that we would have an item ready for tonight. But we'll take it off.
And I fully understand extenuating circumstances and delays. I just wanted to make it clear the request.
I think part of what's going on is, I'm sorry, Gina, I want to bring you as a board a very thorough analysis of what occurred, and also very clear procedurally that it will not happen again. And it may be that aspects of that, because it relates to particular employees, that may be something that can be a privileged document.
Right.
And so we're working on that, because it may be the way to best explain it so you as a board are assured is through that privileged status, because it does relate to personnel. And that's actually in this case, the delays are only because we're trying to be very thorough, cautious, and not have to come back to it again, frankly.
Yeah, no, understood. I just, out of respect for the board to have the full information before they vote. But I guess my question is, are we okay with waiting until May to vote on this transfer, Phil?
So currently, there's a statement that we did receive from the state. We're currently a few days delinquent on this. So in terms of making the payment, before Lewis left, we did have a discussion as to the merit of the notice from the state. And in his opinion back then, it was full merit for the invoice, and we pretty much are obligated to pay that invoice or invoices. So the longer we take, there is the likelihood that there will be additional interest accrued.
And would there be a penalty?
Well, the penalty was already assessed, so this may be a slightly higher penalty and interest payment.
So I leave it up to the board if you feel comfortable voting on this at this time. I mean, it's an amount that we do have to pay the state. That is not up for question. The document we were going to receive was going to be more explanation, and as Bill said, points put in place and procedures put in place to avoid this going forward.
I think might be the way through this might be to approve this here. We can always, if there's an issue or questions when there's further clarification, we could make adjustments at that point.
Yes, let me, if I may.
The amount is what
right.
we owe.
Yeah, my recommendation is, and I think the memo will make this very clear when you see it, because I've seen drafts of it. And again, it'll be a privileged document, but the amounts owed, the penalty already placed within is there. That you know, I'm not happy about the situation. I don't think the board would be happy, but it is what it is, and the obligation is there. I think what's critical, and this is what the memo will show, is still protecting the privacy of the employees, laying out very clearly what occurred, why, and what have been the corrective action, so it doesn't happen again. But I think if not approving it now in Phil's view puts us at some future financial risk with the state, I would recommend you do approve it, knowing full well that very promptly in a privileged way, you will have a full explanation and have a full opportunity to engage in what occurred. But even that would not change the amount owed.
I'm okay with that. I mean, are other members of the board prepared to make a motion as written?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
Phil, just just one more question. I think that, as you indicated, going into this process of moving forward for April report.
Hey Gina, is it just me or is Gina sound echoey? And
You're going
in and out.
I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. We have another meeting streaming in this house. I hope that's not the issue.
So this is better now when you're closer.
Okay, I'll lean a little closer. Sorry. Phil, I think obviously in FinCom we talked about with the extended closure, what the financial impacts could be on the district. And I think as we move closer to this May 2nd date with the town voting, could you take a couple of minutes and explain what you know at this point about the restrictions that Hartford has put on us, or the mandates as far as who we must keep employed? Because I think there could be a misconception by people that because we're closed, we don't have to pay all these people, but we are under a mandate from Hartford to keep certain people employed and continue funding certain things.
And I think there may be a complementary question to that, Gina, if I may, Phil, and that is what the restrictions are, of course, mandated, but also where you have seen any, if any, savings. Not that we were hoping this would be the way to save money, but if they are there, could you highlight them or speak to them for a few minutes?
Sure. So in terms of what we're obligated to pay, so based on the governor's executive order 7R, in part it reads, a local education agency shall, to the greatest extent practicable, continue to pay its employees, contractors, and contractors during the period of any disruptions or closure related to the coronavirus. So pretty much what that means is that we have to continue to pay everyone according as much as is practicable. We've started negotiations with transportation providers to see if we can, if there's any discounts that's possible. We do have an indication, but until we have a signed contract, I just want to wait to talk about any details relating to that and to have further discussions about that in FinCom. So our restrictions is that we do have to continue to operate as is, and we can seek discounts where applicable, but we're really, our hands are pretty much by the governor's executive order. And in terms of any savings that we will see, there's definitely some savings that's going to be directly attributable to the closure, to COVID. We'll definitely realize some savings for utilities, with transportation, and also in terms of fuel. And those are the direct items right now that we can say, that we can definitely identify, saying these items are related to COVID. The other items that we have as it relates to supplies and materials, that is going to be a mixture of COVID / the budget freeze that we recently implemented, or that's currently in place. So it's truly going to be a mixture of those items. But the main items, so next month when I present to you guys, I will definitely highlight as best as possible those items that are directly related to COVID or to the closure, and those other items that are just a part of the general budget freeze that we have in place currently.
Thanks, Phil.
Welcome.
Hey Phil, this is Victor. So yeah, I think this is perhaps a carryover from our past overall board meeting and the finance subcommittee meeting. But yeah, it'd be useful to have some sort of pre-read. Is it possible to get something documented, maybe as background, prior to having that discussion? And when could we expect to really? Because I'd like to understand. And I think the question has been asked by other members. What would have been the puts and takes of what we've been living with for the past 6 weeks or so, right? And now we've bridged some of the gap closer to the end of the year. In addition, we continue to have discussions in the finance subcommittee meeting. But is there? Can you give us a sense of timing as to when we can get materials to get our arms around that?
Well, so I think the next meeting that we have for FinCom is going to be on May 8th. So the next update will be on May 8th. And again, so that's I think to wait that's the best time to really get a better sense, because things continue to be fluid and we're still waiting on the next update from the governor's office. And as you mentioned, Victor, there's some puts and there's some takes. Because in addition to savings that we have realized, there's also some lost revenue or some lost offsets that we will have relating to the entire closure. Such items as we have to deal with for theater production, for example, with lost revenues relating to facility rentals, just to name just those two items. So we have to look at the entire thing collectively, and not knowing where we will ultimately end up. Kind of makes it a little bit difficult, as I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. The assumption that we will make for the next FinCom meeting and going forward, pending any updates from the governor's office, will be that the district will be closed for the remainder of the year. So we'll make that adjustment, and if it so happens that we will come back, we'll have to just take a second look on those numbers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we could target the next finance meeting for that review, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those
Thanks.
are also numbers that the Board of Finance were keen to understand, as well as what sort of impact this has had on the schools in terms of savings. And then also, to administration's credit, what have they done to kind of mitigate any unforeseen costs that came up? And, just by running differently within the school year. So both of those numbers. And then I think, Gina, you brought up just in terms of loss of revenue. There's one thing that, Phil, I want you to speak about, but before that, I have a question, and that goes back to my number 2, the $26,000 for the monthly septic treatment and pumping. In the FinCom meeting, I brought this up, and you had mentioned that this was nothing new and that it was just regular maintenance for the septic, for the septic system treatment and pumping. And then I just was wondering why, if something is routine, is it coming up as a transfer? So I did have a chance to go through the 2021 budget book and look at the same line item. And for next year, you were still budgeting $40,000 for this area. And if it's routine, it just needs to be updated to accurately reflect what we need to do to maintain it on a yearly basis so that we don't have the same transfer this time next year.
I mean, to some extent, it is possible to kind of anticipate what that cost will be. However, it varies year after year. I think for the past, one of the reasons why we had to do this transfer was that in the past month, we had significant supplies that was needed just for the regular clean out or just maintenance of the facility itself. Again, please forgive me, Ruby. Remember, I just started in October, so it's a little bit difficult to get a true sense as to where we are.
One of the problems with the Xenon plant is that we probably should not put anything under the title of routine maintenance, because I don't think I mean, in my tenure on the board, nothing has been routine, right? There's always things that are coming up. So I think we just need to make sure that
to routine, I'm really just referring to the regular treatment of what's there, and also for the pumping, not in terms of general maintenance of the facility itself, which we do maintain on another line.
So we just need to make sure there's enough money in there to cover that line item, really.
That is correct. So for FY20, because the budget has already been passed, we will definitely, I do anticipate that we will need to make a transfer just to cover that expenditure, just because the budget has already been approved and we cannot make any other additional changes at this point.
Oh, well, we can. I mean, we would have to vote on it, but we can reallocate line items of our own budget until June 30th, or unless there's been an extension. We can reallocate if we want after the Board of Finance approves the final number.
I mean, we can, but again, the problem that we run into year after year is that we're constantly shifting from one budget line item to cover another budget line item. So I would say let FY21 run out, and then going into FY22, we'll definitely have a better sense. I'll have a better sense because I'll have a 2-year look back, and I can definitely budget more appropriately as to what's needed in that line.
Okay. And then since we're talking so much about savings, did you just want to give a brief update in terms of the escrow account and what we are allowed to carry over next year?
So in our FinCom meeting, we had an initial discussion about bringing forth discussions with the Board of Finance into entering into or to open a non-lapsing account. Based on general statute, we can deposit into this non-lapsing account up to 2% of any unexpended expenditure that we have, or budget that we have for the year. So for us, that would roughly equate to about $1 million or so that we could transfer. We would not have $1 million, of course, but we could transfer up to $1 million into a non-lapsing account that the board, at the discretion of the approval of the Board of Finance, can use to cover unanticipated expenditure, which we will definitely have a lot of go for FY21. Because there's a lot of uncertainty as to what costs we may need to cover. I mean, I hate to always say SPED, but we definitely will have additional cost items that we'll need to cover primarily for SPED, and just in general, other expenditure that we just cannot anticipate at this time. Not quite sure if that answers your question, Ruby.
Yes, it does. Just in case anyone else who didn't attend the FinCon meeting were wondering, well, because you're showing a surplus here, what do we ultimately do with that surplus?
Correct. So yeah. I was really waiting to bring this to the full board in May once we do that true up, and because the budget freeze is currently in place. So once we do that reassessment, we'll definitely have a good picture as to where we are, and we can have a more healthy discussion surrounding that.
Great. Thank you.
And Phil, this is Victor. is it possible to get a little bit more context on number 5, the LOA for the subs?
So what this is, these are individuals. So these are pretty much long-term sub to cover individuals who were out on, for example, maternity leave or any extended sick leave. So this is pretty much a cumulative amount for a couple of months. It's not just for this month.
Okay. So this is the first time we've had to make this transfer to cover this.
It is not. We have made other transfers similar to this early in the year, just in other accounts. I've been holding back on this one because I wanted other accounts to settle just to see where we would end up in terms of if we would achieve any salary savings, and then make those appropriate transfers to cover these line items.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe not for now, but maybe for our finance committee meeting, I'd be interested to know for the full year, what is a total full year LOA for subs?
Sure, I can definitely bring that up in the next FinCom meeting.
Yeah.
Bill, Internal Services Fund.
Sure. One quick second.
Okay.
Moving to Internal Services Fund. For the year to date, we have current expenditure of $338,026, which would leave at that point we have a current balance as of March of $1,199,331.
Okay.
And that is it for the monthly update.
Thank you.
I just had a question on the dental claim.
Sure.
Oh, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Hi. On the dental claims, are you seeing a decrease since everyone's been home? Can you make that conclusion at this point?
We have seen some reduction. I'm not quite sure to what extent, but we have seen some reduction because there's pretty much social distancing going on everywhere. But what we do think will happen is for any services that will need to happen, we may see an uptick in claims experience for FY21. Any other questions?
No. Let's have a motion.
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the 9th fiscal year 2020 financial update as presented by Mr. Cross.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Taffy. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Tina, aye.
Aye. Okay, all opposed? Okay, motion passes. We go to the non-renewals. Bill, maybe you can give some context of what these non-renewals are.
Yeah, I think Ken has this, or Ken, are you back online?
Do I see Ken? We might have lost Ken.
I think he was on the phone, but he's not responding at the moment. I can see if I can get him.
Yeah, I can start into it, but if you want to check with him, we had divided and conquered on this. So this is his item. Basically, what's laid out here, and it's attached. Let me go to where it should be attached there now. The non-renewal list. Ken, are you ready to go through this?
Ken, I see Ken again here. Yep.
Wow.
Word item FGH.
Yes, thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I've been back and forth between devices. So each year at the April board meeting, we have the non-renewals of building subs, long-term subs, and if there are any staff members who have been RIF'd, the reduction in force non-renewals. We have staff members in all three categories, and none of these are, I want to be clear for the record, none of these are for performance reasons. This is because these were short-term, either 1 year or less contracts in the case of building subs and long-term subs for things like leave replacement or just short-term assignments. So what I'll do is I will go through the list of each category, and then the board can accept the non-renewals and go to the next category from there. So unless there are any questions, I can go through the list of building subs, and just so you know, the public knows all these individuals have been notified previously. This is really a pro forma task that's conducted in April. So if there's no questions, I can go through the list of the building subs. We have Emerald McGonigal from Hurlbut, building sub, Eric Peterson, high school building sub, Jill Patterson, middle school building sub, Nina Dinshaw, Hurlbut building sub, Therese Zook, WIS building sub, and Jennifer Ambrosio, split between buildings. We have those 6 non-renewals for you, building subs.
Why don't you go through G&H, and then we'll just do three separate motions.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. For the long-term substitute non-renewals, Harris, social worker, Arlene Beckoff, pre-K, Tiffany Hovland, special education, Holly Bunin, speech and language, Francesca Nugent, speech and language, Nancy Solomon, SPED teacher, middle school, Kathy Dillon, music teacher, Catherine Angelides, kindergarten teacher, Louis Santoli, social studies, Matt Williams, social studies. And I just add, some of these long-term sub positions have already ended, and some of these will continue through just to the end of the year. And then finally, we have 2 non-renewals due to reduction in force. We have Linda Kanich, part-time art teacher at Hurlbut, and Jennifer Noliberg, 0.8 science teacher at Weston Middle School.
Can we have a motion for the non-renewal of long-term substitutes?
Move that the superintendent of schools is directed to, is this the motion? Oh yeah, okay. Move that the superintendent of schools is directed to notify the following long-term substitute teachers that their contract of employment will not be renewed for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second? Second? Anybody second?
Second.
Okay. I think that was Gina. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's do long-term building substitute, non-renewal of long-term building substitute teachers. Motion, please.
Move that the superintendent of schools is directed to notify the following long-term building substitute teachers that their contract of employment will not be renewed for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion passes. And the final one, non-renewal of reduction in force teachers. Motion, please.
Move that the superintendent of schools is directed to notify the following teachers that their contract of employment will not be renewed for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Melissa.
That was Taffy.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I see lips moving. I don't.
Tony,
Yes.
just a comment before we vote, please.
Okay, so go ahead.
I just want to stress that for our art-loving members of our community, that this is not a reduction to any of our art programming. This is a adjustment based on enrollment that we are not reducing any art programming or art curriculum. I just want that point stressed.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
I just want to say that I know a couple of these folks. They've worked with my kids, and you know, it's hard to know that they're leaving us. But I just wanted to acknowledge and thank them for their service.
Okay, that brings us to the super report. Bill?
Well, I'm not sure it's because you started at 6 or you're just incredibly efficient, but my clock says 7:53. So I got to tell you that boards of education around the region, if they see your efficiency, they're going to come try and bottle it. Because I got to say, you've worked through a lot of very difficult issues with great efficiency. And this is my first agenda item. I just really want to thank the board for the work you're doing, as I mentioned earlier. And now I'm going to go to my list. I kind of let the list slip into my earlier comments. But point one on my list was to thank you as board members for really standing up, expressing everything you can from a distance for the staff. I said that earlier. I want to repeat it because it does mean a whole lot to teachers to hear from you, both in the written way, digitally, but also through the video conferencing as you can, at least with WTA leadership, and in other ways. That it means a lot. Second, related to board work, the fact that we've gotten back to normal. Yes, we're struggling with the technology at times, but we're doing our full regular meetings. We're doing our committee meetings. We're very much in a process that a lot of other districts around us, even if they're with us on distance learning, this level of having governance function at the level it needs to is you're really out front, which is really critical. Third thing I want to stress is I've heard very clearly the need for us to be incredibly fiscally sound and sensitive. If there's any good news in that, many of us live in other communities, and as I had mentioned, I'm still a parent in Greenwich, and Greenwich right now just had their BET vote, as I said earlier, to reduce that budget by $3 million, and they're looking at closing a school. Whether that'll happen, we don't know, but it's very real all through the region. We know what's happening, and I'm in very close contact with other superintendents. Board and Tony and I have talked a lot about this. Most places are reducing to where we are now. Again, that grant reduction, that's 3 million divided by about 150 million. So you can divide the reductions we've been doing. And so Darien had cut. Wilton is going through some cutting, but it's still largely getting down into the neighborhood where, as difficult as it was, that's where you got us as what you then are bringing to the town this year. So that's critical. Next thing I'll say is I did have an update out Friday. I'm trying to have things flow weekly. The communications committee asked me to do that. As you know, as a board, you would get weekly Friday notes from me. I've sort of substituted the more public communications for that effort. The piece that went out Friday, as you know, any superintendent owns a document. It's the superintendent's name on it. It's not the Board of Ed document. It is the superintendent's document. And there were a few items in there that are a bit atypical, but I felt it was important, as I said earlier, to offer my hunch out there for families and students and staff on whether or not we would reopen or we'd still be with distance learning. My hunch was to put that out. My hunch, it was the right thing to do just to help manage expectations. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that there may be some way we're coming back, but I just don't see how that's possible. Do that safely and in a sound way. We'll be phasing back. I just didn't want false expectations because literally last week I was still getting calls from PTO leaders, thoughtful calls on should we have the Memorial Day fair or not? What do you know? I had an email today from the town, very good one, about can we plan for use of your facilities this summer, meaning not mine, but the district's. So I'm trying to have that information flowing. Given the budget items, many superintendents right now are taking the uncommon step, as I did, to underscore the level of funding that their board has approved. I know the grant superintendent did that. I've done it here. And again, that's the superintendent speaking. So if you as board members get any heat for that, say, well, that was Bill's decision and that was his decision as superintendent to take that stand. And this was pre any vote. If this statement had been made after a Board of Finance vote, it would not have been allowed. But it was my view to say, you as a board have done some really heavy, difficult work here, and the community needs to know that. And I was underscoring that. Next thing I'll say is I'm trying to do what I can to be of help to our teachers. So it's a lighter note. With Craig's great help, I've now finished guest reading videos for everybody from kindergarten up through 5th grade. And those will be flowing out starting really tomorrow. I'll make sure you as a board see all of those. And I think the importance of my actually doing that is it underscores how difficult it is to go brand new into a medium and try and be of help. I'm not saying I'm a great guest reader, but I've been doing it since 1986. And then to suddenly do that recorded and to make sense of that is a difficult go. And I think we all have to understand that we have a veteran teacher force who do their work in their classrooms, and now suddenly they're having to do their work digitally and in a way that becomes a bit public. And that's very different. And so it was important I tried my hand at that to kind of, one, be of help, but at least say to the teachers, I know this is a difficult time for them. But final comment is I listen to people across the district. People are really stepping up. And I think you as a board have heard that repeatedly. People are tired, but they are stepping up. And they are finding new ways to do their work. And a lot of them are saying, I don't want to lose this new way when we get back to school. I now have refined my craft, added to my craft, I want to keep that going. And that's a giant help for us. And very tangibly, while I was here as a superintendent, prior to many of you coming on the board, we did work on the vision for digital learning and technology. And it was a very definite decision not to bring the one-to-one down into the kindergarten and 1st grade, 2nd grade level, except a little bit. And that meant when you heard from Laura earlier, not only did Hurlbut have to step into this, they want it all in a robust digital learning format for the entire building. So from the time they went into distance learning, now 6 weeks ago, they ramped up, they got there, their whole curriculum is now in. And that's an example of the retooling and thinking very differently. So I'll end on that. You as a board should feel assured that your team is working really hard and really trying to be there for all of our students.
Thanks, Bill. Before we leave and go to the committee and committee heads for any committee updates, I just want to echo what's been said through this whole meeting. Just the appreciation for how the administration and the staff has stepped up to meet these challenges that this crisis has forced upon us. And I don't think we can say that enough. Hopefully everybody understands that it's really heartfelt for the board. And I also want to thank the board members for really taking their job seriously and continuing to dig in on every issue. Thank you. And also on a lighter note, I want to thank the cabinet for continuing to have a smile on their face during all of these difficult meetings that we're having. I know that you're dealing with a whole bunch of different dimensions, whether they're curricular, financial, sometimes really out of left field questions. But thank you for bearing with us and also dealing with what is a multidimensional problem that we have to work through over the next several months. With that, committee chairs, anything to add?
I will just give a brief update with regards to communications. Upon hearing of Craig Tunt's sad departure, he did, however, put together a very detailed and thoughtful kind of timeline with regards to our new website. So as many of you heard, the district or Weston District is launching a brand new school website, which is very exciting. And I have to say that Craig thus far has done a fantastic job, not only listening to lots of input, but going out and researching what's the best of the best out there doing, and making it just extremely user-friendly. So the site is still planning on launching in July. And like I said, he's worked, now that we know that he's leaving, he has worked kind of a very detailed timeline from July up until present in terms of what's happening when, and the owner and the people involved. So thank you, Craig, for doing that. And then in addition, we did kind of vote in the committee with regards to historical budget content that going forward, Weston will house on the new website the last 7 years of historical budget proposals.
Ruby, if I may add to that, based on your discussions as a committee with Craig, he did bring earlier into June the shift over so that there'd be a little more time while he's still in his seat. If you may recall, I just want to update that. So I don't want the board to hear the shift over will be in July after Craig left, but he actually moved it up earlier into June.
He did. He
asked for that. So I just wanted to underscore that.
Yeah, it will have internal maintenance. The site will go live internally about a week and a half sooner than expected, and almost 2 weeks, so that he'll have time to vet out any issues with the people testing it, internally within the district.
And if I may add, if you don't mind, Ruby, I mean, the website transition is quite significant, and especially, many people have tried to move away from websites. It's, in a sense, our window on the world and other apps, other social media. But it's critical we have a much better website. There's been a long time concern here in Weston, so it's almost Craig's parting gift for us. He's sort of brought us to a place that, going back to Phil Schaefer and others, had really wanted us to get to a stronger place with the website. And to give you one little clue as to how user-friendly it'll be, that calendar you just voted on, basically Meredith tells me by a flip of a switch, that will now show up in the new website, as opposed to the many efforts that were required. We're also working, Craig is very active with all of the principals, assistant principal support staff before he goes, on having the new website be as user-friendly and as effective as possible, and has been regularly reporting out to the communications committee on that.
Hey, any of the other committee chairs?
Finance, we still want to do the budget process debrief. Obviously, our initial pass at it got waylaid by the onset of COVID. And then now Phil has been swamped with trying to figure out financial implications from COVID. But as soon as we get a handle on things, we will be doing the budget debrief, and that will roll right into like the pre-planning for our process for the following year.
Great.
Curriculum, I really don't have anything to add, because between Ken and Dan, I think they covered really just the immense work moving into phase 3 that happened. And that was the bulk of our meeting.
Yeah, and I'll update you briefly on policy. I mean, obviously with the distance learning and everything that's going on with workload, now is not the time to be initiating new policy initiatives. We're just keeping up with requirements based on state regulatory changes, and creating a list of things that we hope to accomplish in the near future, but not right now.
All right. I think that's it. Next meeting, Bill, is there? Oh. Yeah, I'm on. Anything we have to discuss for the next board meeting?
No, I think the materials listed in the monthly planning chart that we've been using, right. I think it's quite straightforward. You will have some other types of annual decisions that land in May in terms of some personnel issues. Those will also reappear in June, a different set. But the list that is pretty clear. We've updated it, so you still will get a monthly update on distance learning. We may still be calling it COVID-19, and I'm trying to have us refer more to distance learning because most people know why we're in it. It's a more positive statement than COVID-19. But what's listed there is what you'll have. But if there's some items that you as a board think should be added, that's why we have this item on the agenda.
Right. Okay. I think if there's nothing else, we probably should adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye.
Night.